Port Harcourt is often described as a city of oil, ambition, and movement. From the early morning rush on Aba Road to the quiet hum of generators at night, the city never truly sleeps. Money moves here in strange ways, sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, but always with consequences. Port Harcourt does not force anyone into a bad life. It simply presents choices side by side and waits to see which one you will touch. Daniel was born and raised in Port Harcourt. He grew up in a middle-class neighborhood not far from the old GRA, in a compound where neighbors greeted one another every morning and parents still believed discipline could shape destiny. His father worked a steady government job, one that paid enough to keep the family comfortable but never extravagant. His mother ran a small wholesale business, supplying everyday household items to shops around Mile 3 in Rumuokoro. Their life was modest, structured, and predictable. From childhood, Daniel was raised on simple principles. Education mattered. Patience mattered. Shortcuts always demanded repayment later. His parents were not wealthy, but they were consistent. They believed that a clean life, even if slow, was better than a fast one built on lies. Daniel absorbed these values easily. He was quiet, observant, and thoughtful. Teachers liked him because he listened. Neighbors trusted him because he behaved well. When Daniel gained admission into the university in Port Harcourt, his parents were quietly proud. There was no loud celebration. Instead, there were prayers and warnings. His father spoke about bad company and fast money. His mother reminded him never to forget God, especially when life became difficult. Daniel promised both of them that he would not disappoint. At first, he kept that promise. University life started normally. Daniel attended lectures, completed assignments, and lived carefully within the allowance sent from home. He stayed in a small off-campus apartment around Choba, sharing the space with 2 other students. He cooked his meals, reused clothes, and avoided unnecessary spending. He was not rich, but he was content. Then, Port Harcourt slowly began to show him another side of itself. Daniel noticed students his age living lives he could not explain. Some drove expensive cars through Alakea and Rumuosi. Others lived in apartments that looked better than most family houses. They dressed well, ate freely, and never seemed worried about rent, exams, or school fees. Nobody asked questions, nobody explained anything. At first, Daniel ignored it. He told himself people had different backgrounds. But as semesters passed, pressure crept in. Transport fares increased, food prices rose. His mother's business slowed due to rising costs. Money from home became irregular. Daniel felt the weight quietly, too ashamed to complain. One student stood out more than the rest. His name was Kola. Kola was always relaxed, always confident, and always financially comfortable. He skipped lectures often, but never seemed anxious. One evening, Kola invited Daniel to hang out at an apartment around Rumuosi. Daniel hesitated, but curiosity won. Inside the apartment were laptops, multiple phones, and young men speaking in low, coded tones. The atmosphere felt tense, but attractive. Daniel did not understand everything, but he understood enough to know money was being made quickly. When he returned to his room that night, sleep refused to come. His mind replayed the confidence, the freedom, and the calm with which those boys moved. Life kept pushing him closer. His landlord warned him about rent. His phone developed problems. He felt embarrassed calling home repeatedly. One night, tired and overwhelmed, Daniel asked Kola the question that changed everything. "How do you guys do it?" Kola smiled slowly. "Bro, life no be hard like that. You just need sense." Daniel resisted for weeks. He remembered his parents' voices. He remembered his promises. But resistance weakens when pressure refuses to leave. Eventually, Daniel told himself a lie that sounded reasonable. He would only try it once, just to clear immediate problems. The first money Daniel ever made was $100. It may have sounded small, but that first alert shook him deeply. $100 solved urgent problems. It paid rent arrears. It fixed his phone. More than anything, it brought relief. That night, fear followed him everywhere. He barely slept, expecting consequences. But the next day came quietly. Nothing happened. That silence changed something inside him. The next time, it was $2,000. $2,000 felt unreal. It was more money than his parents earned in months. It solved problems instantly. Daniel began to understand the attraction, not because people were greedy, but because the relief was addictive. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he would stop. But money has a voice, and once you hear it clearly, it becomes difficult to ignore. Soon, money began to come more frequently. Alerts stopped feeling shocking and started feeling normal. Thousands became tens of thousands. Daniel noticed something strange. He was becoming more successful than Kola. Things worked for him more easily. His confidence grew. Kola noticed too. At first, Kola encouraged him. Then the tone changed. Daniel was no longer the learner. He was now the one people listened to. As a young man in Nigeria, making money most people only dreamed of, Daniel rose quickly. Others began to refer to him as a Don. By the time Daniel started hitting six figures, his lifestyle had changed completely. He bought a modest house in Port Harcourt, far from noisy areas. He bought a used Benz GLE 350 2015 model, not to show off, but to reward himself. He invested in logistics, retail supply, and importation businesses. To outsiders, Daniel looked like a disciplined young entrepreneur. People admired him. Some envied him. Others asked him for advice. Daniel believed he had beaten the system. But money built on the wrong foundation is unstable. Peace never settled in his heart. He was always alert, always calculating, always afraid of losing control. The collapse came quietly at first. A business partner disappeared with funds. Then shipments failed. Debts piled up. Money drained faster than it ever came. Daniel sold the car, then the house. Friends disappeared. One night, Daniel sat alone in an empty room in Port Harcourt. For the first time, he felt helpless. He returned home broken. That night, Daniel prayed honestly, not for money, but for forgiveness. He understood a painful truth. Fast money always demands payment. Starting again was not heroic, it was humiliating. Daniel did not wake up one morning suddenly strong or motivated. He woke up empty. His confidence was gone. His pride had been stripped away. He was back in Port Harcourt with nothing to show for the years he once thought defined his success. The house was gone. The car was gone. The respect he once enjoyed had faded into silence. But something else remained: clarity. Daniel now understood that the life he once lived was never truly his. It was borrowed, and borrowed things always demand repayment. With no capital and no reputation to lean on, Daniel did the only thing he could. He started small, very small. He borrowed a little money and began selling gadgets and phone accessories, chargers, earphones, power banks, phone cases, screen guards in Garrison Junction, Port Harcourt. Nothing glamorous, nothing impressive. Some days he stood behind his small display cable for hours and sold nothing. Other days, customers argued over prices so small it embarrassed him. Some spoke to him without respect. Some walked away after wasting his time. Daniel swallowed his pride and smiled anyway. This time there were no shortcuts, no secret sources, no backup plans. Every naira he earned was clean. Every sale was honest. The first time in years, Daniel slept deeply. He was no longer waking up to sudden fear, no longer checking his phone nervously, no longer imagining footsteps behind him. There was no need to look over his shoulder, no need to fear nemesis, no need to worry about authorities. Peace replaced paranoia. Days turned into months, months turned into years. Daniel reinvested every profit. He learned pricing, he learned customer trust, he learned patience.
Slowly, the business began to grow. Customers returned, referrals came. What once felt like survival slowly became stability. 3 years later, Daniel did something that once would have embarrassed him. He bought a Toyota Corolla 2006. It was a far cry from the Benz GLE 350 he once drove through Port Harcourt like a king. The Corolla had no presence, no intimidation, no attention. But when Daniel sat behind the wheel for the first time, something unexpected happened. He smiled. That car represented something the Benz never did: honesty. There was no fear attached to it, no memories of sleepless nights, no guilt, no anxiety. Daniel could drive freely, park anywhere, answer knocks at his door without panic. He could laugh genuinely again, and that peace was priceless.
Years later, Daniel expanded. One shop became two, two became several. The money came slower than before, but it stayed. His growth was steady, rooted, and clean. He married a woman who knew his story and respected the man he had become, not the myth he once was. Daniel never denied his past, but he never glorified it either, because he understood something deeply now. Fast money makes you powerful for a moment. Clean money gives you peace for a lifetime. And sometimes losing everything is the only way to finally build something that lasts.